Hello, my name's Erik Messerschmidt, and I am the cinematographer for The Killer. I've now worked with David on several projects, and we have, I think, a very refined shorthand in terms of how we communicate. We find the killer in his nest, in his place of observation. David wanted to explore the concept of subjectivity, and part of the conversations that we had with him evolved around the idea that this is a character who never allows anyone in his personal space. Our main camera for the film was the Red Raptor, which was brand new at the time, and I had been beta testing it for the team at Red. So that was our principal first unit camera. And the plates were a combination of a Red Raptor and Red Komodo. The Red Komodo was selected because it is so small. We only had the opening where we could put our 9 cameras was only about a meter square. So we had to figure out a way to put 9 Komodos in this very small space while still being able to operate a camera above them with a long zoom lens. So it was a bit of a puzzle to construct it all. We changed aspect ratio on this film from the prior 2 projects we'd done together, and we decided to shoot 2:3:5 to 1. We thought it would be interesting to put a bit of an anamorphic look on the film, but we didn't want to shoot anamorphic because we wanted to keep the lens and the camera very close to Michael, and in many cases with anamorphic, the close focus would not allow for us to keep the camera that close without the use of diopters and all sorts of optical tricks. So we decided to shoot spherical. And then the aberrations and lens flares we added in post. Never been more involved in post in my career than this film. And we're in there art directing the flares and the barrel distortion and the bokeh, and it became a really fun, interesting process. We wanted to play with the rhythm of the audience seeing him and then being inside his head and seeing exactly what he's looking at. So we have this subjective camera position, subjective concept, and then the objective camera position and the objective concept. So we have these broad conversations, and then we scout. And in the case of this film, we scouted Paris looking for a location that would fill the requirements, and we didn't find it. So we had to construct it. And part of the reason we didn't find it is that big open windows like that actually don't really exist in Paris, at least not in the parts of Paris that we wanted to shoot in old Paris. And the interior on the other side was not appropriate either. The final scene is a combination of actually 3 main elements. The first of which we shot first, are all the points of view and plates outside the windows. So we had a 9 camera setup, all jammed in one little window, and those included wide shots of the square, tighter shots of the square that are fixed, lighting reference, straight shots across the street, getting the plates of the apartment building and the Pantheon in the sky, and then an operated camera with a long lens that serves as the scope points of view. Then we built the interior on stage, and that's the killer's nest, the WeWork space. And outside that window is a combination blue screen and LED panels, the sort of LED virtual production wall, which served as interactive lighting tools in our case. Then finally, the target's apartment was a set that we built on stage. And it had no glass, it had no facade. It looked like a sitcom set almost, just a line of buildings. And we, again, rehearsed all of that action in advance, down to the position of the shot glass, the scotch glass rather, and where the maid is cleaning up and opening the blinds and where the security people are standing and all of that. We laid all that out in advance. And then we shot it from the other side of the soundstage, 200 feet away on a long lens, so that all the distances matched. And then that set was put into the plate that we had shot in Paris and blended with the facade. So it all is meant to appear as real and as perfect as possible. In the interior, it needed to be dark because he's in hiding. He still probably would have some sort of work light so that he can assemble the gun and he doesn't stub his toe on the table. For me, I always feel like the lighting has to come from reality. 90% of it should be real. It shouldn't come from off camera. The lights should be in the frame if they can be. So the lighting in the sequence is almost exclusively driven by the practical in the background. We wanted the apartment across the street really to be the brightest thing in the scene. Those lights are on and gone in there and turn every light on, and so the audience is focused on that environment. So we're hopefully feeling that shift and that focal point of the scene. I liked the idea of the killer being in silhouette as much as possible. Oftentimes we will put backlight on somebody in the event that they're silhouette, or we sidelight them. We sort of make sure there's light on their face. And I thought maybe in this film we don't really do that as a technique. We actually light the background and we keep him in true silhouette as much as possible. That led to conversations around the costume and the wardrobe and making sure that his profile is very distinct. The bucket hat, for example, becomes an excellent tool in sort of describing the character in silhouette.
If I'm effective, it's because of one simple fact. I don't give a fuck.
We shot all of the scope points of view on a long zoom lens, a 75 to 400 Fujinon. I love that lens. And they were shot at the correct distance on the soundstage. So we shot the scope POVs from the same distance that it would have been away from the apartment had it really existed. And then we had a scope there as reference, and I remember standing there with David and looking through the scope. And Gunscope has a couple of very interesting characteristics. One of the things is when it's not perfectly in parallel with your vision, it has these aberrations and sort of artifacts in the edges. And it has to do with your eye position relative to looking down the barrel of the scope. So we sent the scope to post-production, and we said, look, we need you to look through this and look at how this interacts with your vision. And they used it as reference when they made the scope points of view. So the scope points of view even have little dust on the ground glass, and you can see little hairs and stuff in the optics because that's what the scope looks like. And they would send them to David, and we would look at them again and say, oh no, maybe there's a little, can you add some dust here? Can this be a little bit more distorted at the edges and things like that? So it became a process. It's central to the storytelling of the film.
Trust no one.
The killer as a character that is always in control of his environment. He's confident, he is secure, he's going through the motions, he's executing a plan that he knows will be successful. So we wanted the camera to reflect that theme. So when the killer is in control, when he's confident, when he's secure, the camera is perfectly secure. It's in lockstep to his position. We're not following him. We are moving exactly with him. The frames are rigid and structured like the character. We certainly put an enormous amount of energy into making sure that when his mental state was in that state, that the camera was in the same.
Fuck.
Then, when he's not, and he becomes frantic and confused, and he's surprised and he's failed, the camera breaks free. And the camera is no longer steady with him. The camera is handheld. The camera is frenetic. The camera is confused. Hopefully the audience gets a little of that out of it. They see, okay, this is not normal. I think the thing I'm most proud about with this film is essentially every shot that we shot is in the cut. There's very little waste, but everything is very much from a place of intention. Really, we're thinking about what we're including in each frame and setting up each shot deliberately and operating under the assumption that it would be in the movie. Fortunately, I'm thrilled. I think everything we shot is in the film somewhere, so it's nice to see that.